Hi, everyone. This is Maheen, and welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast. Today, we're cutting through the noise of artificial intelligence to discuss what it actually looks like to deploy trusted AI in the real world, that too. Because many business leaders, they find themselves caught between the hype of generic tools and the staggering costs of custom consulting. Joining us to discuss this today is Guillaume Hervé, the CEO and co-founder of Zetane. Guillaume is a deep tech leader with a background as a Canadian Air Force officer and 18 years at the CAE Inc. He has overseen more than 60 industrial AI projects across aerospace, manufacturing, and health tech. And at Zetane, he's helping SMEs move past chatting with AI to building a super smart, automated team of experts. So without further ado, let's dive in and welcome Guillaume. Guillaume, it's a pleasure to have you with us. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm loving this opportunity to be able to speak to that SME, small, medium size group of businesses out there, because I
Right.
believe they're heavily underserved.
Absolutely, Guillaume. You've seen AI evolve from massive 700,000 custom projects to the accessible tools that we see in 2026. Please tell us what has changed recently that makes AI more affordable and faster for SMEs to adopt.
Yeah, so thinking about AI, what I always am amazed at is how quickly things have changed. In AI, 3 years is like a lifetime, and people I think are starting to grasp with that. So if you look at AI 3, 4 years ago, I call it wave one. It was kind of the fancy AI stuff. You heard about facial recognition at airports or fingerprinting applications or even autonomous vehicles, Tesla and things like that, or even computer vision used on robotics or assembly lines. And so those projects look really interesting, but they were kind of out of reach for most people. And it reminds me a bit of, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. I think it's what people have in mind, this big AI that's doing all kinds of things. And then you go to wave two, which you probably experienced yourself, kind of all of a sudden the other extreme, ChatGPT, where like AI become almost a consumer available tool that people can use. And I always use the example, Jane and John planning their Italy vacation. You get access to stuff, you can look up information. Whether it's fully reliable or not, it's good enough for you to kind of make plans. And I think we're in wave three right now. Wave three is, these intelligent tools that are now not out of reach. In fact, they're more available to regular folks in their day-to-day business world where, they've got smart tools doing smart things with them. And why do I go through that? Because wave one required a lot of expertise by consulting people that used to come in and say, look, for us to help you with your AI project, and we did that, by the way, that's where we came from. We need to understand your data, understand your environment, understand a bunch of things, and that costs a lot of money, rightly so, and it takes a lot of time. And so there's still this perception that today AI still needs to do that. But in wave three, when you have these smart, intelligent tools that can do tasks very, very well, what you realize is that the AI today, these models that you're seeing, we call them large language models or LLM. So ChatGPT is a big large language model. They've been trained on millions, if not billions of data sets across the internet. And so they're already ready to go. Therefore, you don't need months or years to have your data structured and analyzed and trained, because the models are ready to do that. So it's no longer about the models. It's about how you can turn a model into a tool that is really easy to use for somebody to do something in their day-to-day work. And that's the big leap that makes AI much, much more affordable today. We saw it coming about 2 years ago, and we decided to pivot and offer a platform which is better than a ChatGPT or a Copilot for businesses that need that type of power, but that doesn't need a lot of chatting experience and knowledge to get started. And I think that's where wave three is bringing you today.
No, that is a huge relief for small business owners, and it shows that affordability and speed, they've finally caught up with the technology. Now, Guillaume, let's focus on how human and AI collaboration can enhance work without really replacing people. Tell us, how can teams work with AI to automate routine tasks and focus on strategy?
Yeah, so good question. I think there's this notion that AI will do everything for you and you can just, sleep while it does its work. I guess part of that is true because you can always, launch a tool that does a lot of work while you're doing something else. But the reality that we're seeing today, certainly in most businesses where there's a level of sophistication to the job being done, what you're seeing is a collaborative environment. We call it human in the loop AI, where you have to think of an AI tool these days or an AI agent like a colleague. So what do you expect of a colleague? If you're going to work with them, you expect them to be trustworthy, reliable, and available. AI tools today give you that. But what I love about what AI has been able to do in the last couple of years is imagine that kind of a colleague, trustable, reliable, available, but that is available to you 24/7, and you can delegate to it all of those tedious tasks, time-consuming tasks, tasks that you used to enjoy doing 3-4 years ago, but that you don't enjoy doing anymore because you moved on. And so you've got this available colleague that is able to get the work done for you and get it done in seconds or minutes or hours instead of days and weeks and months. And so it allows you as a human being, I think, and I've used this term many times, to do your best work because you're delegating that other stuff that really, if you get up in the morning and you knew somebody else was doing it for you, you'd be happy. Well, that somebody else now, because your boss won't let you hire 3 people, is maybe an agent, an AI tool that allows you to do that at a much cheaper cost, obviously, but also it has to be reliable, it has to be trustworthy, and it has to be available, right? And so I think that's the shift that you're seeing now. It's no longer about replacing people. I think it's much more about augmenting me, and doing more with the time I have, not by working harder type of philosophy. And that's where certainly at Zetane, we're seeing a lot of adoption when you take that approach.
Right. No, you've just kind of taken us through all this so beautifully, and it's such a powerful shift in mindset, Guillaume, and proves that AI is a productivity multiplier for existing employees rather than just a replacement. Next, let's shift our attention to why secure, structured AI systems matter more than generic public tools. Tell us, how does Zetane differ from generic AI tools, especially on data, trust, and accuracy?
Yeah, so when I think of a generic tool, just to give people examples, I think of a ChatGPT. Other people in companies will think of Microsoft Copilot. Those are 2 very standard platforms out there. There are others, Claude is another one where if you're more sophisticated in your application, but let's stick to Chat and Copilot for a minute. They're very good tools. And in fact, they help you do quite a bit of things very well. But they have their limitations. So those platforms were never meant to take on sophisticated workflows, as we call them, or work tasks. So for example, we have many of our clients that have tested and they use Copilot and ChatGPT for day-to-day sort of work activities. But once you start having a more complex document, or when you start having multiple documents with maybe graphs and tables and numbers and words, where all of that information needs to be looked at and extracted so as you can make a decision, whatever it is, you get into more of what we call, intelligent tools. And so what do we mean by that? We mean instead of you having to chat, why not let the tool have already chatted and now you jump in right into an automation task? So for example, in today's environments, the more generic tools will have you type a long chat. Can you create something that does this and then that and then that and then give it to me this way in a table with a graph? Well, first of all, you have to know what you're doing when you're chatting for business because it's not as simple as it seems. And 2, you're having to rechat every time. And if your colleague is doing the same task, by the way, they're repeating what you just did, and there's not a lot of productivity or sort of collaboration happening. What we've created as Zetane is tools that are already ready to be used, avoiding the chat. People can still chat, and if they love to chat and they're good at it, they can certainly chat their way to a solution. But what we did is we created a library of tools. Think of it as a toolkit. And a tool might be to help you evaluate documents or to help you summarize a complex set of 5, we have customers using it for multiple documents of hundreds or thousands of pages, and they need to extract key information. Very tedious, very time consuming. The standard generic platforms don't allow you to do that. So this idea of structured intelligence, where you go in, you already have a tool that you trust. It sort of mimics what you would have done anyway. And really, really importantly, it fits into your existing workflow. Super important. What's changed over the last year or two is trust and sovereignty. If you look at what's happening south of the border, if you look at some of the fears around business, a lot of our clients are saying, great, but I don't want my data to go on a server in the US. I don't want my data to help train a model that's going to reside somewhere else that somebody else can use and improve their business. And so what we've done at Zetane is we've listened to that, and we created what we call a sovereign local SaaS deployment, so that somebody using our platform knows that the data never leaves Canada, that it can never be accessed by any foreign country of any sort, and it's trustworthy. What do we mean by trustworthy? It's a big word, eh? Trust. Like, what do you mean by trust? Even if I asked you, in terms of your human colleagues. In the space of AI, what we've realized that people really want to know is, will I get the right information? And if I'm not sure, can I go back to the source of the information to verify? Just like you would do with a colleague that's more junior than you. They would come up with information, and you'd go, that's great, Guillaume, but can I double check, your point number 3? I'm not so sure if that's the right answer. What we've done at Zetane is we've created a platform that you can always go back to all of the sources that the AI used to give you a recommendation. So if you're not sure, A, or B, it's so important to your business that you have to make sure it's really, really good, we bring back that human in the loop interaction, where you go back and you say, before I go with that recommendation, let me triple check, because it has a big impact on my business, going forward. And so with our platform, every recommendation has a link to every source that was used in your documents or information. So it's very easy to trace back the recommendation and allow you to confidently, just like you would if a colleague recommended information to you, to confidently say, yep, that's good, I can act on it, I move forward. And that's the difference today that you're seeing in a platform like the Zetane environment.
Mm-hmm. This is a huge what do you call that? A security focus, which tells us that it is very critical, and it highlights that data sovereignty is the foundation of building a trustworthy AI system. Now, Guillaume, let's look at how trusted AI is delivering measurable productivity gains across daily operations. Can you please share like one real example of productivity gains using Zetane?
Yeah. So, when you talk about productivity in the AI context, what I found over the last few years is, and certainly, you've done a lot of podcasts with technology company. We used to talk a lot about a 10x gain. 10x means like 10 times faster or better or cheaper or whatever. Today with AI, you're talking about 100x or even 1000x. And certainly with our platform, what we're seeing is those kinds of gains. So I'll give you, like, we've had examples of people using our Zetane environment for RFPs, requests for proposals, and bids activities. We've had people use our platform for regulatory compliance, for example, very complex tasks where you got to make sure that you meet whatever regulatory environment you have, or even a supply chain contract evaluation. So let me talk about RFP and proposals, because it's a really good one. So in a lot of companies, submitting a bid is hectic and is stressful, because there's usually a deadline. You have to meet a certain deadline where your bid has to be perfect and submitted by 12 o'clock on Friday. And if you submit it at 12:01, you're disqualified. So you already have a wall that you have to hit, in terms of activity. And what we find is that the RFP process, most companies spend 80 to 90% of their time trying to figure out what I need to answer. Like, what's the important information that I need to provide to whoever I'm submitting to win, and because if I don't do that, I'll be, I'll be non-compliant, as we call it. So we have companies using our platform. We have a tool called requirements extraction or requirements evaluation, where you put the multitudes of documents that you're being provided by your client, and through our platform, you're able to extract in a very easy to understand table all of the key requirements. Again, always source back, so you can double check, like, why is this one standing out more than another one, and what is needed to actually comply to that particular need. But beyond that, it also allows you to create a summary that you can circulate across the business, which people do. and therefore get engineering and and finance and HR to chime in their respective volumes so that they can bring the information required. And then you can create a summary of your proposal using old proposals and the new requirements and say, do me a first draft of how I should answer this. Now, remember, I purposely walk through steps because each time the human can validate and verify that all is well. This process that I'm describing, we have companies that are telling us it used to take them weeks and months. Like for somebody working in aerospace, defense, construction, security, much more complex bids, they're saving literally months of work upfront or weeks of work upfront. What does that mean? That means that instead of spending 80 to 90% of your time just digging for data, you're spending 80 to 90% of your time creating a winning proposal, because that's where you should be putting your effort. And so that's a game changer for companies. A small, medium-sized business that's trying to enter complex environments, or that works in IT where the requirements are complicated, the specifications are difficult to understand, specifications point to other specifications that point to other specifications. Our platform allows you to ingest all that, push a button, get summaries and information that you can act upon, and then distribute it internally in a much more effective manner. So I mean, well beyond 10x, right? We're talking 100x, 1,000x time saving. What does that mean? Well, for many companies, bids and proposals are their source of revenue. Like that's how you make money. You bid and you win or you lose, but that's how you bring new business. And so now what we're seeing is existing teams can actually do more because they're saving so much time that their value now is being put forward in answering more bids and proposal without working harder, just time to do more things in the day, which is what most people look for. So that's just your RFP, but the same thing for regulatory compliance. You can imagine volumes of regulations that you need to validate on a regular basis, depending on the industry you're in. And now you've got a platform that allows you to take your internal data, match it to the regulatory specifications, and very quickly give you, an intelligent, structured response that would have taken you days, at least days to do. You're getting them in seconds and minutes. So again, much more value-added work for the human to then say, oh, okay, now let me dig into this without having to spend your time, researching information in massive documents. So those are two good examples that we're seeing customers get value today.
The efficiency gains, they are incredible. And it's clear that automated reporting and writing, they're giving teams their time back big time. Now, looking ahead, Guillaume, let's move our conversation to the autonomous task automation and where this technology is heading next. Tell us, what major automation shifts should leaders prepare for in 2026?
Yeah, so what should leaders prepare? I'll tell you what we're in AI ourselves, right? And I mean, that's what we do day in and day out. And I'm blown away at how quickly things are coming at us. And so as a leader of an SME, of a small, medium-sized business myself, who's using AI, who's working in AI, but is also facing disruption if I don't adapt, I think that the years, like I've been going to conferences in various sectors related to AI or not, or automation, productivity, for the last 5-6 years. And in the last 5-6 years, I used to see a lot of people show up, and I called it AI tourism. People show up, they're asking you a bunch of questions, and they're kind of just trying to inform themselves, but really with no sense of urgency or acting. I would say the first thing that I would caution business leaders out there is that if you're not leveraging AI in your day-to-day business, and if your competition is, they will leapfrog you very quickly. So the risk of leapfrogging, to me, is the first sense of urgency that I've seen in AI that wasn't there necessarily 2-3 years ago, because it was kind of out of reach, and so now it's within reach. So I would say, get started with AI, because automation is happening quickly. The second thing I would say is really get back on that word automation. What we're seeing is AI used to be about, I'd say, business AI. In the last couple of years has been around chatting, trying to get people chat tools that they can do things with. And what we say at Zetane is, why chat when you can automate? Most employees certainly are not versed in how to properly chat for business results. And why waste their time trying to get them to chat when a ready agent, can do all that chat for you inherently in the design of that tool. And so that would be number two. And then what we're hearing back from clients that have actually gone forward in their AI journey is they're finding that, be careful, this is kind of a warning, be careful because you can overwhelm your employees with AI tools. So what we're seeing a lot of businesses right now is they'll pick one tool for one application, another tool for another application, a third one and a fourth one. And we call it, death by 1,000 cuts, which means what? Well, if you're an employee and all of a sudden I'm telling you, oh, here are 10 new apps with 10 new ways of, learning how to use them, 10 new user interfaces that you have to learn, you're going to be overwhelmed very quickly because, you're almost going, well, I can't learn these 10 new apps. And so what we've tried to do at Zetane is we've said, based on client feedback, we've said, no matter what tool that we provide, it has to be the same way. Whether you're using tool 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, you as a user are never relearning a new way of working. It fits into your day-to-day work. I think where companies and leaders are making mistakes is they're trying to throw too many things at employees. And ultimately, the only value you get out of AI is if you have adoption, employee adoption, right? So how does employee adoption work? It solves a problem. It doesn't threaten you. It allows you to do better value-added tasks that you enjoy most. And you can learn from other colleagues, as you're experiencing your AI journey. And if you get those ingredients in, I think it'll be a much easier journey for most people. It doesn't mean that you let go of your co-pilots and your chat GPTs where they make sense, but don't start bombarding your employees with 12 other tools, which will simply halt adoption and you'll have wasted money, So I think I really think that's where it's heading. That's where we're now, in fact. And I'll go back to leapfrogging. I think many companies will get leapfrogged if they don't take the reins and start looking at the right tools for them.
That's a visionary outlook, Guillaume, and it confirms that intelligent task automation will be the defining competitive edge for the next decade. This was a great conversation, by the way. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing in this space and for all the expertise and the insights that you've shared with our listeners today. Now that we wrap up, Guillaume, what is that one key message about building a trusted AI culture you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would say involve your key stakeholders in the AI journey. I would say if I'm a business leader, the mistakes that I've seen in the last couple of years is business leaders trying to come up with that AI vision and then push it down. And that gets a lot of resistance because it's seen as a productivity grab for the sake of cutting positions or efficiencies. I think if you get, what we call a collaborative practice or a group of early adopters that represent your company, and you get them to bring you the ideas, and you get them, to recommend where automation makes sense for them, right? Because automation, whether it's AI or whether it's a regular software, you don't really care as an employee as long as it helps you do your job. And so we've got to take the sense that AI is going to hurt me, and we've got to give it in the hands of employees. Certainly, companies that we've seen have success with AI deployment. They've engaged the employees early. They've had them help figure out where to deploy it smartly and efficiently. They've gone away from picking that big AI project, that sounds really fancy and sexy, but it's complicated and only maybe impacts 2-3 people in the company, to that more intelligent tool platform where everybody can have access to AI tools and consume it as they need to without being scared of doing so. That's sort of would be my last message to business leaders out there.
That is very powerful and actionable message, Guillaume. It is quite a vital key takeaway for our audience for sure. Thank you so much for being on the show with us and for sharing your great insights. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And listeners, that was an insightful conversation with Guillaume Hervé, the co-founder and CEO at Zetane. We explored lots, including the shift from expensive consulting to out-of-the-box AI productivity and the importance of secure, structured data. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Please be sure to subscribe for more expert insights. Visit our website, CanadianSME.ca, for valuable resources. A special thanks to our partners, to UPS, Avon Global College, ADP, and Google for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses in Canada. Please keep moving forward, and we'll see you in the next one.